Peak Wealth Management proudly presents the Trust the Plan podcast with Nick Hopwood and Jim Pilat, where we believe by providing education and guidance, we can help you retire with peak confidence. Now, here are your certified financial planners, Nick and Jim.
Welcome, everyone, to the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Preston.
And I'm Jim.
And the podcast is undergoing some changes. You know, we might be experimenting a little bit here, but we've got a lot of great content coming out, such as the WJR show that Nick and Jim have started doing. So going forward, I'll be appearing more on the podcast, and we'll be, frankly, tinkering with it a little bit to see what works best. But we're going to keep putting out content because we think it's valuable for our clients.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great opportunity just to have another new platform. Like you mentioned, we're doing the WJR stuff now. We have a lot of content that we're putting out there, and just thought we would use maybe this as an opportunity for Preston to reach some new and different viewers that could connect well with him.
Yeah. So the episode today is going to be the GE 2026 financial plan. It's something we like to do every year as sort of a transparency for our clients, where they can see, are we practicing what we're preaching? What are we doing in our own personal financial lives, and how's that going? And I did start a blog last year that kind of gave everything, really, as far as transparency goes. But on top of that, just like to do a year recap and what's a look ahead, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, being transparent, people can connect with that and resonate with that. And I think you've done a great job of showing, do you practice what you preach, right? Do we do the things that we tell our clients to do? So this is another opportunity for you to do that. And I think looking at it as a recap for 2025, and then maybe talking about what are some things that are on your radar for 2026. So why don't you jump in and start talking to us about what kind of things you were focusing on in 2025? What were the goals and priorities that you had set?
Yeah, so 2025, the major goal I had mentioned on last year's version of the podcast was to pay off my wife's car. Natasha had gotten a car maybe a year prior to that podcast, and that was just going to be a big goal for us, was hammer away at that debt. And we didn't quite accomplish it, but as of today's recording, we have one payment left. So it feels really good to just have one payment left, and I was running the numbers, and had we just continued on kind of the minimum payment schedule the bank put together for us, we'd have 3.5 years left at this point. So having one left, while we didn't accomplish the goal, it still feels pretty good.
Yeah, but that's awesome. Congrats on that. That'll be the best feeling payment you've made out of all of them. So well done.
Yeah. And something else that was new that we started doing was charitable donations. And the way this came about is, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this on a podcast before, but Natasha and I, we sit down together every year and we call it a household summit. We put it on the calendar and everything. And the idea is we're just going to spend a day together diving into everything. Finances, what did we do last year? What are our goals for this year? Health, what did we do last year? What are our goals for this year? Life, travel, all the categories of a spouse partnership, right? Mm-hmm. What does life look like? What do we want it to look like a year from now? And during our 2025 sit down, we kind of discovered giving charitably financially was something that was weighing heavy on our hearts, and we felt like we were being called to do. And we'd always volunteered and given a lot of our time to various nonprofits and causes because that's what we had a lot of was time. Mm-hmm. But now we've made the transition into, we set up, a tithe. We set up a separate bank account where we send money to the bank every month specifically for the purpose of, do you see a GoFundMe that strikes you? Do you see this need in the world, that need in the world that strikes you? Well, this is the pot of money. Just go ahead and send it. No questions asked type idea.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Two things are awesome. One, I love the idea of a family summit, right? Getting on the same page with your spouse, making sure that the decisions you guys are making, you're both on board with. So often, people that we talk with, somebody takes the lead, whether it's the husband, the wife, but we just think there's a ton of value in making sure that both spouses are on board. Both spouses understand where money's going, why it's going there. I think that's great. And then in terms of giving, I think that's awesome. I think, we're blessed, so it's great to be a blessing to other people. So I think that's a great opportunity to do that. Throwing my own 2 cents in there, I think that giving is awesome, and I think that Schwab has some cool ways to do that too with donor-advised funds. Most people can't itemize on their taxes for their charitable contributions because they don't contribute above the standard deduction. But a donor advised fund gives you the opportunity to bunch a couple of years worth of donations together. You can donate appreciated stock into it. There's a lot of different things you can contribute to it, and then give you the opportunity to now itemize on your tax return so you can get a tax benefit for doing it. So just something, little sidebar that I think is a good to keep in mind when trying to do donations is how to make it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and it's a great sidebar because Schwab is great at these donor advised funds. And like you mentioned, it opens up a lot of other opportunities with tax planning by having this deduction available. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure. How about contributions? Where are you adding? What types of accounts are you prioritizing? Why don't you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, so because we're young and we've got time on our side still, prioritize investing in general because we're young and have time on our side, but especially the tax-free growth aspect. So we're prioritizing the Roth 401k contributions, prioritizing the HSA contributions where HSA, you do get a tax break today, but also all the future growth is tax-free, which is great. And it's something that we really appreciate. So prioritizing those two places as far as where to save. And again, because we're young, we're taking an aggressive risk level with it as well, with all the investments.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think if I had to do it all over again, and I grew up in a time where Roth was a new thing, when I was your age, it wasn't really common. There was no Roth 401, so there wasn't the opportunities to contribute as much. But that's a home run for young people, in my opinion, to put as much money as you can into Roth. Let compounding be your friend, right? Time is either your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to this stuff. So while it's on your side, use it as your friend and let that compounding be in your benefit. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. And so that was pretty much the 2025 wrap up. So looking ahead to 2026, what things are on the horizon for us. We're continuing to hammer debt. 2025, the goal was the car, but now we're hammering all of the debt. So when the car is paid off, we'll move on to the next one, which was a home improvement loan. And then just kind of continue. I wouldn't necessarily call it the debt snowball, but we're just really focusing on that with every extra dollar we have. But the reason for it has kind of changed over the last year, where a year ago I was sitting in the seat saying, yeah, we're going to hammer the car loan. And, it's just to free up a payment. And, it just feels like the right thing to do. But again, as my wife and I have sat down, we did the summit, we just have continued to have conversations. And I, of course, am a personal finance nerd. So I've got all the spreadsheets built out and all the, scenarios, worst case, best case, all that stuff. But I realized if we freed up all of these payments outside of our mortgage, but if we paid off all of the other debts, it would give us a whole lot extra flexibility for, what if we have kids and Natasha wants to stay home for a season and, raise the kids. Well, if we had a bunch of debt, we couldn't afford to not have the income. But focusing on paying these off is going to at least allow us to have the conversation about what if we reduce an income and what does that look like for our life.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing for people to hear, right? So many times people look at debt simply mathematically. Well, my interest rate is only this, and I can either make this on it, or my interest rate's so low, I'm going to keep this debt around forever. But what they neglect is the flexibility and the freedom that comes with paying stuff off. So I love that thought process that if we get rid of some of these debts, we don't have these obligations, we can free up that cash flow and do what we want, right? And if that for you guys is maybe you decide somebody wants, Natasha wants to stay home, or maybe, it's traveling or whatever it is for people, paying debt off gives you that flexibility. So I think that's a great priority.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned traveling because I think that would be like Natasha might pick up a side gig just to afford some extra trips. I think that would be a good motivator.
Could be, yeah.
But yeah, again, the focus is just to have that flexibility. And then that's really the primary goal for 2026. Other than that, we're just doing the same, quote unquote, boring stuff that we've always been doing. We're doing the Roth 401k contributions, prioritizing the time that we have on our side with that sort of stuff, maintaining the aggressive risk level. Again, because we have time on our side, and while it's boring to be like, yep, putting away money into my 401k every month, just making the contribution, because you see these TikToks of, I bought real estate and this happened and that happened, Or I'm a crypto investor. I feel like I'm picking on people now, but we're just doing the same old boring stuff because we know over the long term it'll pay off for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, when time is on your side, you don't have to pick the 100 million stock or get into the Bitcoin at the right time and have it grow 100x and all that stuff. It's just doing the right things over long periods of time sets you up to be successful. And I would say we're big believers in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, the purpose of this specific podcast, but also the financial journey blog I'm doing, is to just provide some transparency of we practice what we preach. We do the same things that we recommend to our clients. So if you have questions or comments, or hopefully not any concerns, but even concerns, would love to chat about it. You know, very open to having a conversation about it. And if you want to learn more about what Peak does and the types of services we provide and the type of people we help, happy to have that conversation as well. So again, I'm Preston, and this is Jim, and this was the Trust the Plan podcast.
Peak Wealth Management thanks you for watching and listening to the Trust the Plan podcast, featuring certified financial planners Nick Hopwood and Jim Pilat. If you enjoyed our program, please subscribe and share. If you'd like to learn more about our services, please visit peakwm.com. peakwm.com today. See you next week.